Hey everyone, it's me, Madson. Um, Dealing with my shaved head, kind of loving it. Feels super naked and vulnerable. It's kind of awesome. It's kind of weird having to wear a hat to take my puppy for a walk, um, especially in the empty streets. So yesterday I talked about letting go. Um, Today I wanted to talk about some real stuff, some stuff that's not fun, stuff that's I think a lot of people get, but not enough people really want to talk about it. Um, I'm an introverted extrovert who suffers from depression and anxiety. Um, about 10 years ago, no, actually 12 years ago, in 2008, at the onset of the what was possibly going to be the biggest depression since the Great Depression and an insane recession. I made the New Year's resolution going in 2008 that I would no longer watch, read, or support any news media network that didn't proportionally report what was good and bad going on in the world, which means the news would have to actually start reporting about 80% good and 20% bad. But we all know that negative news is good headlines. Negativity is the things that many people want to watch because it somehow makes them feel better about their lives. I don't get that. I don't understand how other people's doom, other people's fear, other people's desperation, other people's anger, other people's I don't I don't get how that makes anybody feel better about their lives and what they have going on. Um, I stopped watching those things because the more I did, the more my depression had me in a place that I didn't want to leave my house. I would lose that spark, that light, that inspiration, that everything else. My depression and my anxiety has taken me to a place of drug addiction. Um, it can take me to a place of suicidal thoughts. And in 2008, when I turned off the news, when I stopped looking at the newspapers, when I stopped looking at all that kind of stuff, when I would be scrolling through Facebook and it would come on a political post, I would exit. I began being very conscious of what brought into my vibration. And in the middle of the recession of 2008, I was doing hair and I started doing energy healing work. Reiki combined with massage. Now I'm also an intuitive empath. So when working with people, I get insight and understanding to things that we share that aren't the same but similar. So I'm able to discuss what's going on with me in a real or generic way um, that often many people or the people that I'm working with are able to find their own insight and their own understanding into their own path, that they can find their own answers. And as a result of that, my life began to boom. It began to flourish. I created a website, greatdaywellness.com or greatdayornot.com, where I began a video blog. I started doing yoga. I ended up traveling through India for 4 months with only 2 nights worth of hotels booked for the entire trip. And it was the most beautiful and the most horrific place I'd ever been in my life. It was horrific every time I applied the privilege of the United States and the understanding of what happiness was based on my experiences in the US, on as an expectation of people in. I like that view much better. Much more plants. I love my plants. Lots of plants. Plants are life. They keep me grounded and they keep me connected to something that's real and something that is ever flowing and only gives forth in equal balance of what it receives. Um, oh, I'm also a little bit ADHD, so there might be a couple squirrels. Squirrel! But anyways, um, and my life began to flourish. I began to develop programs of meditation um, that will eventually become books that I've been working um, on the chakras, on elemental healing, on color therapy, on aromatherapy. So I tend to wear a lot of color. Color holds vibration that allows us to find something within ourselves to empower certain aspects of ourselves. Whether you believe it's hooey or whether you believe it's real, power happens when you give something power. And I give color power to empower me, to lift me up. But right now, in these times of uncertainty, in these times of this pandemic that nobody knows, nobody understands, I can't shut off the news. I can't shut off the world around me and dive into myself and flourish in a way that I could, because we're not allowed to have contact. We're not allowed to have connection. We're not allowed to be present because we're living in so much fear. And last week, it became apparent to me just how much that fear and my depression and my anxiety are right there waiting for me at any moment. See, I go from day one as a story from Where the Sidewalk Ends to day two, story of Chicken Little and the Sky is Falling, to by day three of complete isolation without connection, without life around me as an extrovert who uses the world around me to lift myself up to a place that I not only am okay, but that I can thrive, and then take moments as an introvert and go within and contemplate those lessons and those experiences and those understanding and those connections that I may find higher purpose in all of those things. And by day three, Chicken Little has become Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill Part 3. I go from The Sky is Falling to active suicide, or active thoughts of suicide. Now, I've been dealing with this for many years. I get it. I understand it. I have no intentions on ever acting on it, but it's there. It's part of me. I do take medication, and during this time, I've now had to double my medication. Just to keep day three from happening. I have found every single day on my dog walks, every morning, I go for a walk, and because grocery stores are one place that we can still go, and my dog is a service dog, cutest little thing in the whole world. He's right there. Hi, Banner. Banner. He doesn't care. He's at home. He's not working. And I literally order a coffee because it's one of the only Starbucks in town. But it's one of those things that I learned that I do for me. I can't afford much, but I have to do something every day to show myself that I'm worth it, that I'm worth doing something extra for. And then I take my dog, my service dog, and we walk up and down every single aisle of the grocery store. Respecting and honoring social distancing. Trying to get as many glimpses and as many smiles and as many acknowledgments of hello. Experiencing connection, that we're all together in this, that we aren't alone, that we don't have to walk through this alone. So that way I can leave there and have my dose of, I'm okay. I'm okay. But it's scary and it's real. I hear all the time that I can't do anything, I can't go anywhere because the world needs me. But the truth is, I need the world. And I'm not an introvert, and so I need the people in that world in order to feel connected, to have purpose. Now, most of the time I spend that time giving. Because it is the act of giving of myself that I find my completeness. Regardless of what I get back, regardless of any of it. But as soon as somebody says, you can't go, we need you, I want to run, and I want to hide, and I want to disappear. And then the Sidewalk Ends turns into Chicken Little, which turns into Kill Bill Part 3. And then I'm back in the grocery store, walking up and down every single aisle to get nothing more than a banana and a cup of coffee, because I can't walk in the damn grocery store without at least buying a 25-cent banana, because I can afford a 25-cent banana. And I see bootleg clients for haircuts at home, where I bleach my chair in between every client, and I use a new cape in between for every client, and I sanitize absolutely everything, and I have hand sanitizer at my front door for every client to use, and I'm sanitizing the doorknob so they don't have to touch anything while they're in my apartment, except for themselves, and not that way. It's not that kind of haircut. Because we have to find fun. But I get to feel a connection. And yes, I also got tested last week. And I'm free of COVID. And I've asked anybody who is experiencing any symptoms to never come into my apartment. And anybody who's in direct connection with anybody who could be at risk to please not come. And to anybody who is at risk, if they do come in contact with something, to please not come. So I'm doing my part to honor, respect the fear that's going on right now, while honoring and respecting my need to preserve that glimpse of light that I hope I get to share with the world around me. That I may still find completeness in an isolated world of fear. That every day feels like it wants me dead. Or at least that's what my head tells me. See, I'm very fortunate that I have the education and the knowing and the understanding to study the psychology and the sociology, or the psychotherapeutic mind sciences and the neurology and everything else of what's going on inside my head. And I've been dealing with it now for probably 40 years, and being non-reactive to it for 40 years. But the world has now taken away every coping skill that I have learned to deal with who I am, to face the world and be a light in a world of darkness. At least when you watch the media. To be a light in the shadows. To try to be a beacon of hope for those who suffer and those who are scared to come forward, because coming forward makes you different, and if you're different, you're pushed further into the shadows. Because people fear what they do not understand. And what people do not understand, they want to silence or destroy, so they don't have to feel fear anymore, and they find empowerment by silencing those people who bring up and talk about the things that scare them. Well, what I fear is silence. Because in the silence, when I don't let everything that's going on in my head out, it gains power. It's like I am a crescendo in the middle of a decrescendo. As my body becomes still and silent in the isolation and the fear of the world around me, locked in my own apartment, my mind is in a constant state of crescendo that is ever building and growing as my body is shutting down and my mind is shutting down. And all I want to do is disappear to make the sounds in my head and the voices in my head and everything else go away. But they aren't there to go away. They're there to remind me to be alive, to stand up to the darkness, to step out of my apartment into the fear of society. I still don't watch the news. I still don't watch the media. Everything I gain from the people around me who are living in that fear, who are sitting there constantly on their phones and updating the latest news updates and finding out how many people die as we're locked in this isolation without any measurement or tools of measurement to even figure out if this isolation is doing anything. Because they're isolating us to slow down the transmission of a virus that they're not testing to even know how much of the virus is out there, because our president doesn't want to know the numbers, because he doesn't want those numbers attached to our society, to our country. So we have measures now in place to slow the transmission of a disease that he himself stopped tests from even happening until, of course, his son-in-law got the bid to produce the test. Now all of a sudden he's in favor for it, of course, so his family can make more money. But we don't have tests to test enough people to even track or measure or even record whether or not isolation is going to do anything to slow the transmission or slow anything down, because we don't know. That being said, I'm still honoring social distancing because social distancing works. But for what? My business has been boarded up. I'm having to bootleg clients like Prohibition days, just so I can hopefully continue to pay the rents to the property owners and to the people that don't want the inconvenience of their profit streams being interrupted while the rest of the world suffers. the food chain. Where the lowest ranks in the food chain are starving and are dying, and still expected to pay to make sure those that are a little bit higher than them don't have to experience anything more than an inconvenience. I think too much. But I've lived too much not to fight. If I was going to give in to the darkness, I would have given into the darkness years ago. I choose to be a light in that darkness. I choose to continue to give, and I choose to thrive. And I choose to give back. I don't give back because I can afford it. I give back because I can't afford not to. I share the little that I have right now with anybody who needs it. Not because I can afford it, but because I can't afford not to. See, we want to break the world up into the have and the have-nots. But we're all haves, just as much as we are all the have-nots. And what we have is always more than somebody else and less than somebody else. And if everybody who has even 10 cents gave 5 cents to somebody who has less, then we all have enough to share. There's over 100 people a day today in Seattle applying for unemployment. Normally it's about 5 to 6. That's crazy. In a city that has some of the highest housing costs in the city of, in the country of the United States. But that's a whole nother story. I told you there's going to be a lot of squirrels during this video. But I'm an extrovert in a city of introverts who's been forced to isolate in a world of fear, where both the isolation and the fear are my proverbial gates of hell. We are all doing what we can and what we have to survive. But we have to stop, even in the middle of survival, and look to our rights, look to our left, and even look back behind us to see who might be struggling a little more than we are. Because only when we give of ourselves can we receive the light of our truth and replace our darkness with light, emptiness with fulfillment. I'm an introverted extrovert who suffers from anxiety and depression, who goes from where the sidewalk ends to Chicken Little to a Quentin Tarantino film of Kill Bill in about 3 days. And if I can sit here today and deliver a message of hope that even in our darkness, we can find our light. And even in our suffering, we all have something worth giving. And in that giving, we are also worthy of receiving. But the act of giving is all the fulfillment I need to remember who and what I am, and remember that of my purpose. And that is to live every day to its fullness and without regret. And even if that means taking a walk up and down every aisle of the grocery store once a day to buy a 25-cent banana and a $2.86 cup of coffee. And then walk outside and deliver the change of that $4 to the homeless person that's standing outside. Because I don't know their darkness. I can't. But I do know my darkness when I surrender my light. For those of you listening, thank you. And if you get something from this, share it. Share it with anybody you think can benefit. And if you can't share this, share your light. Share your truth. And share your pain so that maybe others will understand. And remember, have a great day, or not. You choose.